Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1.
The thinking atheist. It's not a person. It's a symbol. An idea.
The population of atheists in this country is going through the roof.
Rejecting faith. Pursuing knowledge. Challenging the sacred.
If I tell the truth, it's because I tell the truth. Not because I put my hand on a book and made a wish.
And working together for a more rational world.
Take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way.
Assume nothing. Question everything. And start thinking. This is the Thinking Atheist Podcast. Hosted by Seth Andrews.
Tony Williams was in mourning, and he was alone. Tony is 75 years old. He is a retired physicist. He spent his whole life in science, and he lost his wife in May of this year. They met in a bar decades ago, and they started talking, and before you know it, they realized they'd been talking like they knew each other their whole lives. And they ended up having this sort of storybook marriage. You know, not a lot of conflict, really, just sharing life and loving each other and being together and being in those moments. Those moments lasted more than 35 years. His wife's name was Jo. Tony and Jo had not been able to have children. And so Tony, without his wife, was now by himself. He had no other family nearby, and the guy would just sit at home and wait for the phone to ring. You know, somebody contact me, somebody reach out, anyone, you know, help fill my day, help interact with me, make me feel like a human being, like somebody cares, you know. I mean, losing Jo to pancreatic cancer, that had been hard enough. But all of a sudden, with the cancer and the pandemic and the distancing and the isolation, Tony was just drowning in this ocean of loneliness. So Tony did something unusual. Instead of waiting around for somebody to befriend him, he decided to get proactive. And so he put an advertisement in the local paper in Hampshire, his hometown in England. And in the classified ad, he said, "Hey, I would like a friend," you know, and he listed his phone number. The phone did not ring. Now, I kind of understand this, right? Readers were probably nervous. Hey, wait a minute, there's a strange guy in the paper soliciting friendship, right? I mean, we'd all be a bit wary. And so Tony didn't have any success on that front, not with a classified ad. And so he had business cards printed up, and he had his personal information put on them, you know, his name and his phone number, and I think even his address. And he walked around to various passersby and people he'd meet on the street, and he would just hand these cards out. Hey, if you need a friend, feel free to reach out. Here's my card. Here's my information. Same result. Right, probably for the same reason. It would strike anybody as rather odd. Hey, wait, there's this old guy, and he's giving me his card, and he wants me to call him, right? And in this day and age, we all need to be a little bit wary of that kind of thing. But Tony wasn't going to give up. And so he tried something else. He had this poster printed up, and the poster said this. It said, "I have lost Jo, my lovely wife and soulmate. I have no friends or family, no one to talk to. I find the unremitting silence 24 hours a day unbearable torture. Can no one help me?" And Tony took this poster and he hung it in the window that faced out toward the sidewalk in front of his house. And there weren't a lot of people that walked by, but there were a few people. So he put the poster up with the message facing out, and then he waited for something to happen. Well, it turns out a few reporters caught wind of this, and they saw the sign, and they started to spread the word. I think someone may have even published an article in the local paper about it. And within hours, strangers started reaching out to Tony. Hey, come join us for lunch. Hey, we're going to go out for a drink tonight. Come be with us. Come hang out. There was one group that said, hey, we're taking a tour of the United States. We're taking a big road trip, a vacation coast to coast. Would you like to join us for that? One family even offered to adopt Tony as their new granddad. In fact, so many messages arrived in Tony's inbox, it crashed his email. It just crashed his email. But that's okay. That's a good problem to have, because Tony Williams is no longer sitting alone in his home with nothing and no one. He has been befriended and talked to and listened to and joined, even adopted by people who just a few weeks ago didn't even know he existed. Oh, I needed to hear the story of Tony. Didn't you? I got to know that there's some good left in the world. Like every day I feel the baggage on my shoulders, don't you? I brace myself. It's like that meme with Picard on it where he says, "Damage report. What horrible untruth was offered up by those in power? What catastrophe or natural disaster took place in some region of the world? Who pulled a gun on who today? Who died of cancer? What celebrities or famous figures or Supreme Court justices died today or last night?" We just log on and we steal our jaw and we're like, okay, here we go. Fine, and click. I asked the question to our listeners a few weeks ago, how'd you like a broadcast with just an assembling of random goodness, faith in humanity stories? Not necessarily hugely consequential in terms of the rest of the world, but a reminder that all does not suck, and that maybe there's some hope for humankind. That's what this broadcast is. Good news stories. Like the story of Gloria Scott. She lives on a modest income. She's retired. Doesn't get around very well. She's 72. She lives in Woburn, Massachusetts, and the house has kind of fallen down around her. Right? But she's sitting at home, watching TV, just spending time, and then the ceiling light goes out. So now she's in darkness. It's hard to see anyway. And she bites the bullet. She calls the repair guy, self-employed electrician, a guy named John Kenny. So John shows up in his van, or Kenny Electric. He walks in and takes a look at the light socket and sees, it's fried, and so he decides to fix it. And then he takes a good look all around him. And he realizes Gloria Scott's got a lot more problems than freaking ceiling light. The other lights in the house, a whole bunch of them aren't working. No running water in that house. The ceiling was rotten from the leaky roof. No stove. The paint falling off the exterior. Gloria had the refrigerator plugged into an extension cord, running that into one of the few electrical outlets that worked in the house because none of them in the kitchen worked. The place wasn't just falling down around Gloria Scott. It was a literal hazard. John Kenny fixed that light and he left and he went home. This was a Friday. He was at his house and he just couldn't stop thinking about Gloria. Now, he just could not get this situation out of his skull. And he decided he could not live with it. And so he started a social media fundraiser and he titled it, "Nice Old Lady Needs Help." And then John went back to the house and he went to work. And he started repairing for free. He started repairs on the house. And guess what? Long before other tradespeople, other experts in home repair, they joined in. Now, it's ironic because the original Facebook post had John actually say, there was a line in there that said, "It's not like we're trying to rebuild her whole house." That's what he said. He was trying to encourage people. We're just going to fix up a few things. But that's essentially what happened. The entire porch rebuilt, all new electrical, all new plumbing, all new windows, walls, ceilings, almost everything in her house replaced from the lawn to the front steps. It's like the town itself came alive. People donating from all over the region, other people showing up to lend their skills, even those who didn't have the skills for construction. They sent gift baskets and they offered up food to help feed all the people who were working, everybody donating their time. This team of Good Samaritans even got a name out of the occasion. They became Gloria's Gladiators. And this story does not end with Gloria Scott. You see, John Kenny was so inspired by all of this that he's hoping to help other people who have similar hardships around the state of Massachusetts and even around the United States, maybe even opening chapters of Gloria's Gladiators in other cities and towns across the USA. Gloria Scott had a rotty old house, but because of the kindness of strangers, her fellow human beings, she now lives in a safe, almost completely new and wonderful home. Recycling, it's not really solving our plastics problem. We have, as a species, we have a dependence on plastic, and we've all seen the negative impact to the environment. Scientists say they now have created an enzyme that can break down used plastic bottles for recycling in a matter of hours. Now, remember, some of these bottles can last like decades or even over 100 years, depending on the constitution of the bottle itself. They engineered it from this bacteria. It's found in leaf compost. It reduces PET bottles. I'm going to try to pronounce this. These bottles made from polyethylene terephthalate. I don't know, whatever. It's a form of polyester. And it reduces this plastic down to the chemical building blocks, and then they're able to take that and make new things out of it. Speaking of plastic, there was a design graduate in Britain, 23-year-old Lucy Hughes. She has invented a plastic alternative. It's a strong, flexible, translucent material. It's called MarinaTex. It looks like plastic. It feels like plastic, but it can be disposed like compostable food waste. It disintegrates like food waste. It's a weird combination. She uses red algae, and it binds proteins from fish skins and scales into these translucent sheets of sort of pseudo-plastic. I don't know. She won an award last year, the International James Dyson Award for Design Engineers. Apparently, this is a major step forward, because instead of these single-use plastics that sit around on the planet and potentially harm the environment, you've got a plastic alternative that just disintegrates like maybe a banana peel. That's cool. You know, human ingenuity and some science and social responsibility all combined to try to make the world a better place. Let's find out what you have to say, and we go to the switchboard for some random goodness. Area code 203. Hi, who's this?
This is Matthew. I'm in Connecticut. How are you doing, Seth?
I'm well, Matthew. What do you have for the broadcast?
One, I wanted to say thank you for your voice, literal and figurative. You have gotten me through some tough times, so thank you for that.
You're very kind. Thanks for that.
Secondly, let me see. Back in April, my best friend's mom and her boyfriend both got COVID. I know it's a rough start, but bear with me. Barbara was okay. Ed went into the hospital. He almost died, but when he came out, he immediately proposed, and now they're happily married.
Do you think it was motivated by, I need to seize the day, like I survived COVID, so I need to seize the moment?
Very much so. Very, very much so.
And they lived happily ever after. I like that story very much.
So glad you enjoyed it, Seth.
Matthew, thanks for sharing. Be safe out there.
You too. Bye-bye.
See you later. 719. Hi, who's this?
Hi, it's Glenn.
Glenn, thanks for calling. We're talking about good news because we need it.
Well, I had the good news for you.
Yeah.
It sounds like you already know this. Maybe you just haven't said it out loud. I try really, really hard, and when I do, I can learn something from my dog every day if I try.
Give me an example.
Everything about a dog. They're infinitely patient. Their love is perfect. You know, it's, what do they call that? The one thing my only girlfriend ever told me that didn't exist was unconditional love. I said, you never had a dog.
I've seen that poster. It says, it's a philosophy for living. It says, wag more, bark less. I think I buy that. Yeah.
That's my good news. If you got a dog, try to learn something from them because they're a lot smarter than we are.
All right. Thanks for calling.
Peace.
What would I learn from Linus and Gracie? Let's see. Don't pee in the house. Bathe so you don't stink. Naps are good. Like never say no to a nap. Protect your people. Always protect your people. Never turn down an opportunity to go to the drive-thru. Linus, and especially Linus, Gracie's still learning. Linus loves the drive-thru. Now, we don't do fast food, really, but we do occasionally do ice cream. Linus loves ice cream. When I pull into, there's a frozen custard place just down the road. That place is dangerous. Those things are high fat, high calorie. You can knock down 1,500 calories with one of those concretes where they do a pumpkin pie custard concrete where they mix into the custard an entire slice of pumpkin pie. Oh my God, it's a calorie grenade. It is also one of the most delicious things in the universe. Anyway, Linus and Gracie, they get straight vanilla ice cream or custard. And whenever I pull into a drive-thru, they know. It's, oh, here it comes. Like the magic window will open, and there will be such goodness and sweetness and deliciousness that's coming through the magic window, and then we will be in a happy place. And that's exactly what happens. So never turn down an opportunity to get ice cream through the drive-thru. That's another lesson from our dogs we might be able to learn. Speaking of dogs, I guess I need to tell the story of Gracie, our foster dog. Everybody's been asking. A quick setup or synopsis, and if you've heard this, bear with me. Natalie's cousin was looking for a smaller dog, a rescue dog, for a family. He's got 3 young girls aged 4, 6, and 8. And apparently in the D.C. area, the adoptions are so high, people are adopting these little dogs at such a high rate that it's harder to find them. And he said, do you know anybody? And of course, we're wired in with the Humane Society of Tulsa. We've done some rescues ourselves through them. We said, yeah, absolutely. And before you know it, we were fostering this little Shih Tzu, 12-pound girl named Gracie. And she was just terrified. Her whole world had been turned upside down. She was an owner surrender. Apparently the owner was traveling and couldn't be with her. I don't know. I suspect a little bit of neglect. The claws were really long and there were just a few little things. Not overt, really egregious neglect, but she hadn't been totally properly cared for. But whatever happened, I mean, her whole world had been turned upside down. At the Humane Society, she was growling and she was terrified. Her muscles were so tense. She was like a solid rock when you were finally able to pick her up. We brought her here and she just hid. She hid under the bed. She hid under chairs. She was hiding under this stool in the bathroom, this little sort of stool that you sit on to do makeup and stuff, you know. And she jumps under there, and I made the mistake of reaching down to try to pick her up, and she felt threatened, and I got bit on the hand and drew blood. It was my fault, right? Too much, too fast, too soon. I had not established any trust. I was rushing it. She was unhappy. Obviously, I mean, I'm sure she missed whoever her owner was. She missed wherever her home was, her familiar bed and routine and all those things. What has happened to my life, Gracie is saying. And we're thinking, you know, we're going to rehab this dog. We're going to give her a second chance. And then in 2.5 weeks, when the cousin comes down, he's going to come by and take a look. And then he's going to scoop her up and take her home to surprise his girls. It's going to be a big thing. And Gracie's going to have a new family on the East Coast. But something began to happen. First of all, Gracie started to relax just a little bit. Finally, after a couple of days, she started to crawl forward toward us. You know, oh, wait a minute, you're not going to hurt me. You know, you're safe people. You could see that she was starting to figure that out. Oh, hey, when I hear the rattle of the food dish, now it's dinner. You know, by the way, right after she eats, she takes herself out back and goes. I mean, totally potty trained. She sat on the couch. I mean, she was still tense and looking around and kind of wary, but she came out of the bedroom and started to incorporate herself into other parts of the house. We got her to go up the stairs. She would not go down. Scared to go down, she would stand at the top step and just look. I can't do this. I'm scared. I can't go down the stairs. So while she walks up, She would be in my office, and then I would have to scoop her up and walk her down the stairs and place her on the ground. But every day a step forward, every day we could see more of her emerging, and every day Natalie and I began to fall more and more for this little dog. What are we going to do? Can we give her up? Like, they're going to come. He's going to come here, and he's going to take her away, and he's going to put her on a plane, and he's going to take her to a house that is, I don't know how far Washington, D.C. is from Tulsa, Oklahoma. How do we feel about that? Can we do that? Is it right to say we don't want to do that? How do we feel about that? What's best for Gracie? The plane ride's going to freak her out. We don't know what to do. We bring the grandkid over, and we discover something. We discover that Gracie is not good with children. I'm guessing she'd never been socialized with young ones. Maybe it's a breed thing. I mean, I don't know. I'm no dog expert. But this little pre-adult walks in, the 6-year-old kid. Gracie never got comfortable. She was always agitated and looking at him warily. She just couldn't relax. Here's a little clip, an audio clip from some video I shot. She's sitting relatively close to Braden, the grandkid, and she would not stop doing this. Hey, come on.
Gracie.
Barking, growling, barking. It was just not right. Holy shit, what happens when we take this dog and put it on a plane and it ends up in a house with a 4, 6, and an 8-year-old girl? And we expressed those concerns because we felt it was the responsible thing to do. Natalie's cousin said, we're going to come by and we're going to just take a look, So finally, he arrived from D.C. and he came over and we introduced. And it didn't take long before he came to the same conclusion that we did. Gracie's a good girl. Gracie's a good girl, but, she's not going to jive in this active household with young children. She is the right dog for a certain family, but not for theirs. And so we all packed in cars and we all went back to the Humane Society to find, hopefully, another animal, another dog that might be good for this young family. And we went from dog to dog and we brought them into the lobby and let everybody run around and we handled them and got their backstories. And there was this one little dog. I don't even know what kind of dog he is. He's like Baskin Robbins. He's like 31 flavors. He's this tiny little puppy. They had given him the name Cody, who is fearless and clumsy and funny, and he just bounced all over the place. His ears are sticking up and his tail is wagging 1,000 miles an hour. He plays with everything he can find laying on the ground. He jumps in your lap. He jumps out of your lap. He is a lover. You get kisses. When you pick him up, he melts like butter in your arms. He was the best little guy, and he seemed like he'd be great for a family with 3 young girls. And so they scooped him up, kept him for a night here in town, and the next day signed the adoption papers. They put him on a plane, and they surprised the girls with little Cody just a few days ago. So I texted, and I said, how did it go? What happened whenever you brought the dog in? The response was that the girls immediately fell in love. The dog fell in love with them, but they gave him a new name. He's no longer Cody. His new name is Donut. So little Donut found himself a home. He'd been born at the shelter. Like, he'd never had a forever home. He'd never had a temporary home. He'd never been in a home. He'd spent his whole life at the shelter. This is the first time he's going to have a place of his own, sleep in the bed. He's going to romp around, hang out on the couch, probably go for walks. You name it. He's got a forever home, a happy ending. But what's going to happen to Gracie? Well, if you could look through the internet right now, through your internet cable, into my studio right now, you would see in my lap, I got a blanket on my lap, and I got Linus asleep. And on the floor, next to my left foot, in a big, poofy, cozy, comfy, doggy bed, you would see little Gracie. who is now officially, or will soon be officially, a part of the family. We're supposed to sign the adoption papers any day. You want to hear some audio of Gracie now? She and Linus have become pals. They play every night. And when she plays, she grunts like a little guinea pig or something. Here, just check out the audio. It's adorable.
You watch their mouths play. It's like
looks crazy.
Yeah.
Those eyes, she looks crazy.
Linus does too. Look at his eyes.
We weren't looking for a dog. We didn't think we needed a dog. We've got a dog already. We got a cat. You know, we're not. No, we're just fostering. All of a sudden, we looked around and said, "How did this happen? Like, how? Wait a minute. Do we want a dog? Do we want a dog?" Natalie and I were having this conversation, and I made this observation. I said, sometimes in life, we choose where we go. You choose what doors you open. You choose what circumstance that you are going to be in. But sometimes life kind of happens to you. Like a happy accident happens. You didn't plan it. You didn't foresee it. But all of a sudden, you look around and you say, hey, wait a minute. This is kind of where I am. I'm just going to go with it because it actually feels pretty good. I mean, I couldn't give Gracie up. Natalie couldn't give Gracie up. And she has totally changed. You should see her. We first tried to walk her on a leash. Never been walked. It was obvious. We put the harness on her. First day, we barely got her out to the mailbox. That's fine. One step at a time. Let's go easy. Next day, she made it one house down, one house to the east. So we went down and peed in the neighbor's yard. Well, that's a big step. Okay. The next day, she went 3 houses down to the end of the block. The next time we went out, she went all the way around the block. It was amazing. She is learning to love walking the neighborhood, bouncing around on the end of a leash right next to Linus. They're walking side by side. The other day, after Gracie had been upstairs with me in my office while I was working, I went down to top off my coffee, and Gracie, by herself, walked down the stairs. She overcame her fear, and she just went for it. So now she's going up and down the stairs like she's been doing it her whole life. I've got a routine with Linus every morning. After we do all of our stuff in the morning, I go upstairs to my office and I say to Linus, you want to go to work? You ready to go to work? And he will run across the floor downstairs and he will bound up the stairs and he will come sit in my lap and we will go to work when we start the workday. Gracie normally hides out in the bedroom, sleeps on a pillow or under the bed. I'm about to go up, and I look, and I see her head poking out of the master bedroom hallway. And she's looking at me. So I said, Gracie, you want to go work? You want to go to work? And she came alive, and she romped across the living room floor, and she went to the bottom of the staircase, and she bounded up the stairs, and she ran in my office, and she plopped right down in the doggy bed like she's been doing it for 10 years. I mean, how could you possibly give that up? Gracie, welcome to the family. You want to see some cute photographs and video, just go to my Facebook page, Seth Andrews' Facebook page. Just go. I got dogs playing. I got puppy dog eyes. We've fallen hard. A happy ending to a very unsure story, right? We're not sure how we got here, but we're here. And for Little Donut, and for Gracie, and for Natalie and me, and I guess for everybody who's been watching this story unfold from the periphery, we have some good news. We have a very happy ending to the story. I've got more good stuff to share with you, plus more of your phone calls on the other side of this short break. Hang on. I've been having so much fun doing these greets on Cameo. People have an occasion on the way. Happy birthday, happy anniversary. I just graduated, or I've just got a new job, or maybe just what the hell. I'd like to send somebody a greets. And then they actually look me up at Cameo.com and they type in my name. And for just a few bucks, I will send a personalized video greeting to you or whoever you want. I use that to help fund my work. This year, I'm using it to help fund Ghost Stories. Specifically, I'm paying for the voice talent and a big ensemble piece, the big finale of the show. And I'm so thankful for the support. So if you want a video greeting for yourself or somebody you love, just go to Cameo.com and then type in my name, Seth Andrews. I usually crank those out within about a day or so, a personalized greeting just for you with my thanks. Cameo.com and search for Seth Andrews. You want this show early and totally commercial free? Become a patron, patreon.com/Seth Andrews, and thank you so much for your support. The world's gone mad, my friends, but we're spreading a little good stuff, some encouragement, some hope for humanity. Various stories from across the United States and around the world, plus your calls. 208. Hi, who's this?
Hi, Seth. It's Jane again. I called you about, I'm the veterinarian lady.
Hey, you've been following the Gracie story, probably.
I have been. Congratulations. I'm proud of you.
I think everybody saw this coming.
Just took you a while to realize it.
It did. What else is up?
So one of my foster fails, my first human foster fail was my first foster son. Sorry, I have my grandson here too.
That's just fine.
My husband is a teacher, and he always makes the statement to his kids. He writes his phone number on the board and says, if you ever need anything, call me. If you are at a party and you need picked up, call me. Whatever. There's no judgment. I will come and take care of you. Well, turns out that one of his students was in a horrible home, and his dad beat him up one day, bloodied his face. Cops came, put the kid in foster care, and teenage boys are extremely hard to place. So he went to a foster care that was 100 miles away from anybody that he knows. He decided he didn't like it there. He was going to run away, walked 50 miles to the nearest town where he was picked up by the police. And then they put him in another foster home. He ran away from that foster home too. So his next stop, through no fault of his own, was going to be juvenile detention. And my husband's students came to him and said, okay, Mr. Little, it's time for you to put up or shut up. Nathan needs a home. What are you going to do about it? Within 2 days, we had another son in our house, a foster child. Because he was a teacher, because he knew the student, they waived the background requirements for immediate placement. So they brought him here, and we went through the process backwards and became foster parents. It's been a very positive change for him. He still has problems, growing up in a house like that. You can't escape that. He still has bad habits that we try to break. But when he first came here and he would do something wrong, he was like Gracie, he would lash out and bite kind of, in the human fashion. Or he would just completely shut down and look down at the floor when you talk to him, because he was expecting to be told he was stupid and worthless and unlovable and why are you even here? But instead, the way we parent is, dude, we love you. You're part of this family. You belong here. You're not going anywhere. How do we fix this? How do you make better decisions? How can we help you make better decisions? And just in the 2 years that he's been here, the change in him is incredible. He walks around with his head held high. He knows that if he messes up, that, there's forgiveness. We're not going to throw him out. We're not going to punch him in the face. So it's become fewer and farther between that he makes those mistakes or those bad decisions. He comes to us and talks to us about the decisions he's going to make. And, he's a teenage boy. He's going to be stupid and he's going to do stupid things. And we tell him that all the time. This is your chance to do that. Be dumb. Don't make dangerous decisions. Don't do dangerous things, but you have a safety net. You're here. You have a roof over your head. You have food. We're not going anywhere.
Well, that's
change
talk
is
about
incredible.
putting your money
Well,
where your mouth is. You know what? I think all of you deserve a trip through the drive-through to get ice cream. That's what I think.
I think so too. I agree 100%.
Hey, you are changing someone's life and giving them a second chance, and from that we draw tremendous inspiration. Thanks for sharing this story.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Here's another story I thought was interesting. At least it gives us food for thought. How do we deal with the drug problem in this country and around the world? We talk a lot about the war on drugs. Remember back during the 80s, it was Nancy Reagan's campaign, just say no, as if it's that easy, right? You know, we put the solutions to a hugely complex human issue, and we just stick it on a bumper sticker, a binary solution. Just say no. I mean, it's just that easy. But when it comes to drugs and the availability and the effects of drugs and the reality of addiction, I mean, this is a really complex problem. And here in the United States, it feels like we're constantly on the losing end. Somebody had said the other day, congratulations to drugs for winning the war on drugs. Now, I've taken more of a libertarian stance on drugs since I came out of the faith. Back in the day, you know, when I was busy judging people, it was always like, every drug is bad. And drug users should be locked up because they're breaking the law. And it was a hugely hypocritical stance because, like, it's really about the use or misuse of many of these substances. Alcohol, perfectly legal, as I understand it, causes more than half or is involved in more than half of all automobile-related fatalities in the United States. Alcohol addiction remains a problem, but it's perfectly legal. Meanwhile, you know, we're just now seeing inroads when it comes to marijuana, etc. How do we handle the harder drugs? You know, cocaine and heroin and all that stuff. Well, Portugal has successfully reduced overdose deaths by more than 90% in the last 20 years. And they did so by shifting how it approaches drugs. It used to have a major addiction problem. And then Portugal decriminalized all drugs. This is a radical thing, you know, especially for somebody like me, the former Fox News Christian. Well, what? You just made it all legal? But instead of arresting and jailing people who were caught with no more than 10 days supplies of drugs, meaning they were users and not proven to be dealers or whatever, they might get a warning, they might get a small fine, they might have to report to an official about perhaps getting treatment if there was some addiction stuff in play. But they implemented needle exchange programs. You bring in the dirty needle and you are swapped out with a sterile one, which helps to prevent disease. And they treat drug addiction like a sickness more than a crime. And they have made a pact to try to treat those using drugs even excessively with dignity and respect. The figures are startling. In 1999, Portugal had 369 deaths by overdose. 369. By 2016, that number was 30. And cases of HIV from dirty needles, that was over 900 back in 2000. In 2017, just 17 years later, they went from 907 to 18. The Guardian did a piece on this, exploring whether or not Portugal might be able to teach much of the rest of the world how to deal with drugs. I don't know. What's your perspective on it? I mean, I do support the idea of, like, recreational drugs. You know, I mean, honestly, people are doing them anyway. Take the crime out of it, regulate it, and focus those resources on helping people who are struggling with addiction. I'm not saying that we absolve people of personal responsibility, and I'm not saying that people who are using drugs aren't negatively impacting other people. It's just like an abusive alcoholic or a parent who damages their children in some way with drugs, or people who are under the influence and are not thinking clearly, get behind the wheel of a car. I mean, there's no cookie cutter. I mean, Nancy Reagan, I'm sorry, there is no catch-all cookie cutter answer, but what we're doing ain't working. So I personally take inspiration from Portugal. I mean, hell, if you can drop 369 overdose deaths to 30 in about a decade and a half, there is something there that we should be watching and perhaps learning from. Rita Ebel lives in the town of Hanau. Hope I'm saying that right. Hanau, Hanau, Germany. Disabled in a bad car wreck 25 years ago and in a wheelchair ever since. And she's been frustrated because she'll go to various shops and cafes and realize that they are not accessible to people in wheelchairs. I mean, she's 62 years old. She can't get up the stairs. She is in this wheelchair. Well, she came up with an idea. Rita and her husband concocted a plan to construct these made-to-order ramps for shop entrances. So she decided to provide to these organizations the ramps that they did not have, and she had them constructed out of Legos. Brightly colored, interlocking, plastic, Lego, bricks. They're happy, they're festive, they're functional. And people are installing these Lego ramps wherever they can. Rita's hair salon. She always had trouble getting up into the salon over the entrance steps or whatever. They installed a Lego ramp, so now Rita can just wheel her way right up in to get her hair done whenever she so chooses. I love the idea. Lego wheelchair ramps. They're happy, they're fun, they make you feel good. Legos just make you feel good. You know they got to be cheap. And damn it, those things are durable. Right? Anybody who's ever stepped on a Lego in bare feet, yeah, you know Legos are durable. It's an ingenious idea. Also relating to Legos, which apparently have like 1,001 uses. In places around the world, they're starting to use Legos to help visually impaired children learn Braille. They're having troubles because in the digital era, right, because of audiobooks and computer programs, there are a lot of people who simply are not learning to use Braille, and yet it remains an important tool for the visually impaired. How do you teach this to young children and get them excited? Well, they took Legos and they molded them with the same studs that are used for letters and numbers in the Braille alphabet. And then they actually have printed characters on them so that teachers who have sight and the family of the visually impaired can see what the numbers are or are supposed to be. Legos are teaching visually impaired kids how to read in Braille. 519, hi, who's this?
Hi, Seth. It's Jeff Brooks calling from Lambton County, Ontario, Canada.
We need some oxygen. We need some good news. What do you have?
I think I got something for you. So I have the privilege of managing a bunch of very dedicated paramedics in my county. And a few months ago, some of them approached us and said, we would like to volunteer to take palliative patients on one final wish or one final trip. So over the past number of months, we've had paramedics volunteering to do that. People send in the requests through their palliative physician. We've taken a gentleman home for his last birthday because of COVID. There were some challenges there, but 150 cars drove by his house and honked their horns and wished him a happy birthday. We've taken people home to spend time with their family for a couple hours and their friends kind of for one last visit. And where we are, we're right across the river from St. Clair County, Michigan, and it's a big thing in our county to go down under the bridge and have French fries from the French fry truck. And so we've done a number of calls where we've taken people down for French fries with their loved ones one last time. And it's been a great reminder for us and for our staff at how important these little things are to people. And, you know, being able to do these things for people that are dying has been greatly inspirational for our folks and the paramedics that have done it. I was at a conference a couple of years ago, and a quote that I carry with me to this day is that, you know, dead is dead, but dying is still living, and things we can do to help these people, you know, live well is so important. And it's been just such a great inspiring program, and I'm so proud of the staff I have that have been doing it.
That's a lovely story. By the way, when my time comes, I would like it to involve a French fry truck.
Absolutely. And in Canada, one of the big things is you have to have vinegar with your French fries. I know that's always a frustration for us when we come down to visit our friends in the United States. It's very hard to find vinegar for our French fries.
What? Vinegar with French fries? Oh.
Absolutely. Try it. You'll love it. You'll thank me for it later.
I went to the freaking Netherlands, and they're doing mayonnaise with French fries. And I thought, this is the end of civilization as we know it. But now I'll try the vinegar. If I come up there, we'll make it a party. Okay.
Absolutely. Thanks for everything you do. I enjoy your podcasts and your posts. It's you're doing a fantastic job, and you have a lot of big fans up here in Canada. So
thank you so much. You guys be safe. Take it easy.
Thanks.
All right. See you later. I mean, I can see vinegar. Mayonnaise, no. Mayonnaise is a sign of the apocalypse. Mayonnaise means the killer asteroid, we deserve to be wiped out. Like, if we embrace mayonnaise and French fries, we are fundamentally broken as a species. I will die on this hill. Mayonnaise and French fries. I remember looking at somebody they were sitting right next to me and they were doing it. And I just thought, this is a convergence of elements that should never meet. I'm just saying. So when your time comes, right, the clock runs out on this wonderful and yet fragile temporary life, how do you want to go out? Fewer and fewer people are doing the casket. That's like 50 or more % of people these days are doing some kind of cremation. I always joke with Natalie that when my time comes, I'd like to be in the bodies exhibit. Like, make me useful. Put a tennis racket in my hand and then stick me in the bodies exhibit. Let me travel the world. You can come visit me, Yeah. Let people check. I mean, I'm not going naked. I need the shorts. Like, give me some kind of shorts. Cause that's the skinless penis. I know. No. Put something on me. Okay. But then I want to be in the bodies exhibit, right? We'll have a good laugh about that. But I mean, I love the idea of going out in style. There's a guy named Suttie, Suttie, 94. He passed away earlier this month, a veteran of the Second World War. And he was known throughout his community in Roanoke, Virginia, for handing out juicy fruit gum to everybody that he met. And he just kept this Wrigley juicy fruit with him all the time, these little packets, and he would just hand them out. He started this back during the Second World War, supporting the troops who were fighting by taking them Wrigley's gum. At the time, Wrigley's wasn't even selling the stuff to the civilian market. They actually pulled all the Wrigley's spearmint, double mint, and juicy fruit from the store shelves, and they directed the entire output to the United States Armed Forces. And so this guy, Suttie, fell in love with this gum. And he started keeping extra packs and he gave it away. And after the war, he gave gum away to his community. Everywhere he went, he would give out these packets of gum. Sometimes it would be a conversation starter because he wanted to honor those who had died during the war. And so he'd talk about how he'd given these packs of gum out to soldiers in the field to try to make their lives just a little bit better in that moment, Well, he passed away and he had a friend named Sammy Oakey who owns Oakey's Funeral Service in Roanoke. And he said, my final request is that I want a casket that's painted like a big pack of Wrigley's Juicy Fruit gum. Big yellow packet of Wrigley's. That's what I want my casket to look like. So at the time when they had been talking in the months before, Sammy's like, yeah, okay, I'll see what I can do. We'll take a look. Well, after 45 years of friendship, Sammy decided he had to make good this man's last wish, and so they took a casket and they painted it bright yellow with the Wrigley's Juicy Fruit brand and logo on it, and the pallbearers carried it through the funeral to his final resting place. Wrigley's actually was resistant to let them use the logo because they wanted permission, right? Well, hang on just a second. You want to put a Wrigley's casket in the ground? They were hesitant, but there was a social media campaign, and finally, the company's president said, okay, great. We would not only be proud to have the logo, but we'll also send you some products from our company to the family. At the funeral, they handed out 250 packs of Juicy Fruit gum. Another story related to a military veteran, Christopher Baum. He came out of the Army and he entered civilian life, and he became introduced to the staggering statistics about veteran suicides. 22 veterans every day end their own lives from trauma, depression, PTSD, something else. Christopher Baum himself, he was injured. He'd had a past struggle with alcohol abuse and depression, and he really connected with the pain of those who just chose to end their own lives. And he decided he wanted to help. We need to help these veterans come out of a military culture and integrate or reintegrate into regular civilian life. And he realized that the United States Army has a Twitch channel. Now, I'm on Twitch. A ton of people are on Twitch. It's a live streaming platform for video gamers. And so what he did was he set up a Twitch channel and a YouTube channel. It's called bayonetxray. And this guy plays video games for 22 minutes at sunrise every single morning. This represents the 22 veterans that die by suicide every day. So the number itself is meaningful and symbolic. And while he's gaming, he shares verbally, he talks about strategies for combating PTSD and depression. He gives daily motivations, kind words, encouragements, tips on how to live better, how to eat better, even meditation and breathing. And he has developed a connection and even friendships with veterans who are sometimes very isolated all across the United States. He is using video gaming to help people live better lives and to potentially rescue those who feel so desperate that they're thinking of ending it all. And in those dark moments, they can log on for 22 minutes in the morning, and there he is, Christopher Baum. He's playing video games, and he's just talking about life and health and friendship and meaning and goodness and putting one foot in front of the other, reminding people they are not alone. Imagine when we were kids, we told our parents, video games can help save lives. I wonder if they might have been more understanding when we said, just 5 more minutes, Mom. I just want to play 5 more minutes and then I'm done. I don't know. I'm just saying it helps people. Video gaming, changing lives. I'm saving the world, Mom. Don't you want to help me save the world? Oh, yeah, I would have loved to have those discussions. 970. Hi, who's this?
Oh, hi, I got through.
You are
this is
on.
Cathy in Colorado.
Cathy, you are live and global. What's on your mind today?
I have a pet story for you. It's not a cat, it's not a dog, it's a fish. Fish are our friends. So I have a large cichlid. It's a redhead cichlid. They're originally from Belize, and they get to be about 12 inches long. It's in a 65-gallon tank, and it sits between my kitchen and my dining room. And there's one spot in the tank where there's kind of a triangular spot between a piece of wood and a piece of rock. And when I'm in the kitchen cooking, that fish will be watching me in the kitchen. In that tank is also a large apple snail. And one day the snail was stuck on the glass, and they have serious suction, so it's kind of hard to pull them off. Well, my fish, Doofus by the name, wants to watch me. The snail is in its window. He goes over there and grips the snail with his teeth and pulls the snail off the glass, swims down to the other end of the tank and drops it, and then comes back to the window so it can watch me in the kitchen. I was absolutely flabbergasted that I actually saw the fish do this. It's like fish have serious personality. It was so hilarious.
I just picture you like, what happens if you're in the kitchen and you're, making halibut or trout or salmon. I mean, does the fish look in there like, oh my God? I mean, that's a dark.
You're not my friend anymore.
That's a dark place. I didn't mean to go there. I'm so sorry. So you don't serve mayonnaise on the fish either, hopefully. So no mayonnaise.
No.
Awesome.
No. Lemon and butter, perhaps. But,
well, you take care of little doofus, and
okay.
That's something definitely to smile about. Thanks for calling.
You bet, Seth. Thank you.
See you later. Little doofus couldn't see what was going on in the kitchen. He had to go move the snail. You know, it's ironic when we think about the great composer Beethoven. I mean, he composed the Fifth Symphony and so many other masterpieces. Beethoven had severe hearing loss. He wrote some of his greatest music as he was going deaf. Well, perhaps it's fitting that there's an orchestra in Hungary that's doing concerts for the deaf. And here's how they're doing it. They bring the audience in, and then they put chairs right next to the musicians in the orchestra, and they allow those who are deaf to reach over and place their hands on the instruments so they can feel the vibration. Other people hold balloons. These balloons convey the vibration of the musical sounds. Many people who still have some hearing are given hypersensitive hearing aids, and this orchestra in Hungary is doing concerts for those who previously had not been able to experience music at all. There's an Italian football club, very popular, AS Roma. And it has a massive social media following. And clubs throughout Italy, whenever they talk about their new signings to the team, they do novel and interesting things to try to get attention, right? They come up with these various stunts, and everybody has started to compete with each other. They're one-upping each other. And AS Roma is a 3-time Italian champion. They had really enjoyed a reputation for doing quirky things when talking about the team. Well, now, whenever they sign a new player, they present the face and the profile of that player, and alongside that player, they are putting up the face of a child who has gone missing, along with the information about that child, the name and the phone number, a video clip. You know, since June of 2019, they have found 6 missing children in Great Britain and Belgium and Kenya. So as people are watching their favorite soccer team in Italy, they're also part of a child advocacy network. All the fans are part of a network that helps to find, locate, and rescue missing children. Here's a story that'll give you hope for humankind. You know, whenever we look around and see these videos on social media, we see somebody doing something awful to somebody else. Oh, look, somebody's beating somebody with a pipe, or, they're bullying somebody, or, just horror after horror. And we watch and wonder, why aren't more people intervening? Well, actually, the truth of it is that people actually do, statistically, largely intervene when they see an injustice being done. Researchers from universities in Denmark, Holland, and the UK, they viewed video footage of more than 200 arguments and assaults throughout the cities of Amsterdam, Lancaster, Cape Town, and they noticed that in 9 out of 10 cases, when some wrong was being done to a fellow human being, somebody stepped in to help. Somebody intervened. Now, this goes against what's known as the bystander effect. The bystander effect is a principle of social psychology, which says that the larger the number of observers to an emergency, the less likely it is that the victim's going to get help, right? The more people are standing in the mob, the less likely it is for a good Samaritan to step in and intervene. Well, that's not necessarily the case. In fact, according to the studied video footage, 9 out of 10, 90% of human beings who saw some sort of conflict or wrong or injustice taking place to a total stranger actually stepped out and stepped forward to do the right thing. The Good Samaritan, my friend. There's never enough of them, but there might just be more than you think. How you feeling? You starting to charge your battery at all? Do you have any more hope for humanity than you did just a few minutes ago? Oh, I have more to give you. Come on, let's enjoy and soak up and revel in human goodness. We'll do more in just a second. Reminding each other today about human goodness because it does exist. We don't talk about it enough. Sometimes we are desperate for it when we scroll through our daily news feeds. But yeah, it doesn't get a whole lot of press, but it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Human goodness, alive and well, that's what this broadcast is about. My mind just wandering. I wanted to toss this out, talk about a feel-good. I think it's a feel-good story. Saw this documentary on Amazon Prime, and it's called At the Drive-In. And it's about this little hole-in-the-wall piece of history in Pennsylvania called the Mahoning Drive-In. It's just tucked away. You almost have to stumble upon the place. And they're running these old-school, 65-plus-year-old 35-millimeter projectors showing movies in the digital age and trying to somehow stay alive, stay solvent, and stay relevant. And some nights they'd have like 2 cars come out and watch a movie. And then a few years ago, the Hollywood system just stops producing new movies on film. Everybody's gone digital. What is this little drive-in gonna do? And so it sort of chronicles the story of these people. It's not even really a story. It's not like a linear narrative. It doesn't take you a lot of places. Mostly you're just hanging out for an hour and a half with these people running the drive-in as they kind of do what they do. And anyway, it's a charming little story. A quick spoiler alert. You can skip forward 3 minutes if you don't want to hear. But there's this moment about 2/3 of the way through the film where one of the 35-millimeter prints isn't going to arrive on time. It gets hung up somewhere in shipping, and they have been promoting that they're going to show it. And they've got an audience. They've got cars out there. What are they going to do? And so at the last second, they come up with this plan. They take this projector, not a theater projector, but something you might use in a small auditorium. Actually, they had 2 of them, and they stuck them on top of each other to combine the light and the power so it would have more throw to go out and hit this big-ass CinemaScope screen. And then they pulled the movie up digitally because they already had the license to show it, and they just rigged it and ended up stumbling into a solution to their problem. So instead of a $100,000 theater renovation to go digital, they continue to be able to show these old school kind of retro movies using 35-millimeter, and with this little rigged system with a couple of stacked and synced projectors, they're able to show the new stuff on digital. And because they wired it using these projectors into a laptop, they can also plug it into an old VHS machine. And they've got these charming little 1980s VHS movies. And so now they're doing VHS nights. And it has attracted people from across the region. So this waning, trying not to become irrelevant little drive-in movie theater in Pennsylvania is seeing kind of a renaissance as people who enjoy the charm of the drive-in are discovering them and able to see movies of all shapes and sizes in whatever format as this group of volunteers continues to make it happen. Like I say, the documentary's not for everybody, but I thought it was kind of charming. It's called At the Drive-In. It's on Amazon Prime. I haven't been to the drive-in in like 30 years. I'm kind of a purist. Most of it for me is about the sound. When I used to go to the drive-in, it used to be those little handheld speakers. You had to hang them on the window. I think now, don't they do Bluetooth or wireless or radio signals into your stereo? Because my Nissan's got a pretty solid stereo in it. I can do that, but I sound like an old timer. Back when I was a child, we just had one little tinny speaker and we hung it on the window and we liked it, right? Talking like my parents. We used to walk to the drive-in uphill both ways and we liked it. Well, in the era of COVID, the drive-in makes a lot of sense. Drive in and maybe go get a concession from the outdoor stand and go sit back inside your car, crank up the stuff. I'm going to have to look that up because there's a drive-in in this town. It actually burned down like 15 years ago, a big fire. And the city rallied together and did like a fundraiser, and they built a whole new screen. It's like a double screen. You can park on either side. So that's kind of that happy ending to that story. But I may have to check that out. Maybe we'll pack the car. Wonder if they'll let us take Linus and Gracie. They can sleep in the dog beds in the back, and then we'll watch a movie at the drive-in. I have to see about that. 580, hi, who's this?
Tim from the other side of the state where you're at.
Are you in the Panhandle, or where are you?
No. Not too far from Texas Panhandle.
Okay, cool.
On I-40. A little bit of background on myself. I used to work for the Department of Corrections. Early into my career, I actually watched 3 individuals, all 3 convicted of murder doing life without, save another inmate's life. Guy had just come into the facility, not maybe 2 hours before, and had a heart attack. We get the emergency response call, and these 3 guys are doing CPR on him, and they're taking turns. And, you're thinking, wow, these guys, all convicted of murder, saving a dude's life. What's going on here? Turns out, it wasn't an isolated incident. Several years further down the road, I'm watching on camera, and the guy slices himself open on the razor wire. Another inmate saves his life. Now, you're thinking, well, these guys are in prison. Why would they do that? They did it because it was the right thing to do. Just because they're in prison doesn't mean they're necessarily a bad person.
Do you think that these are people who they got caught up in something which led to their imprisonment, or maybe they found their way out of a kind of a black, dark, a really tumultuous, even evil part of their life and rediscovered their own humanity?
In my 8+ years as a correctional officer, not every individual that lands in prison is a bad person. It doesn't matter what they're in for.
So someone who made a terrible error in judgment or did something horrible to another human being at one moment in their life may be able to tap into their own humanity in another moment, meaning that these people, they're still human beings.
Right, and that the system hasn't completely eaten them alive, like it has with some of the others that my former brothers and sisters in the other corner of the state deal with on a regular basis.
All right, man. Appreciate the call.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Well, that's a whole other broadcast. I mean, you and I probably agree. There's some evil people in this world. I mean, dangerous people who do only evil things. They are without conscience. They are dangerous to the rest of us. And they kill because they are compelled to kill and probably even enjoy killing. So I don't think we're talking about tapping into, the humanity of someone who has not displayed humanity. I wrote a chapter about the death penalty in my book, where we talk about how killers are often, born, but they're also made, nature and nurture. That's a whole other broadcast. But what about the people who, it was the heat of the moment, or they were under the influence and then they got sober? Or I'm not making excuses for killers. I'm talking about looking at someone who was at one point in their life a different person. Maybe they were like Red in the Shawshank Redemption. In their youth, they were violent and misguided and horrible. And, then they realized that they did not want to be that person anymore, and they began to better themselves, and they committed themselves to trying to help. I know those stories exist, so if we take what he has said and we see somebody who was convicted for murder, who is helping another inmate within the barbed wire and walls of a prison, it does provide an opportunity for a little observation about our own humanity. That's a messy one, right? That's a complex one. That's a conversation we probably have to pursue at another time. Let me finish up here with a little bit of good news that relates specifically to the work we do here in the atheist quote-unquote movement. And there are a ton of movements, a lot of gears in this machine. But on this broadcast, we talk a lot about religion, superstition, and the reasons that we are really better off without magical thinking, and especially without this power grab that's going on in our country by the Christian nationalist and the evangelical right. They've infected the Republican Party. This actually started a few decades ago, back in the 80s, right? During the Reagan era, you had Jerry Falwell and the Moral Majority. And that organization got hugely political. Billy Graham, the famous evangelist, he was hanging out with presidents. You had James Dobson and Focus on the Family, and you had the Family Research Council. Essentially, these are religious political groups, and the whole GOP, the whole Republican Party, started acting like a damn church, right? Especially those in power. And they started talking about biblical family values. And this informs how we treat the citizens of the United States and what rights we will afford or deny, whether it's abortion or reproductive rights or who gets to get married or whether or not non-Christians are even considered first-class citizens. Maybe they're second-class citizens because they're not true Americans, right? All that really kicked in a few decades ago. But what happened is that it began to polarize the moderates. Christians who were not fundamentalist Christians, moderate Christians, casual cultural Christians, they didn't want their party to be a church, and they weren't interested in discriminating against their brothers and sisters here in the United States who might not be Christian. And they became disenchanted, and of course everybody else, the non-Christians, were thinking, what the hell is going on with the Republican Party? So their opposition began to rise. The Pew Research Center says that 2/3 of Americans now describe themselves as Christian. That number is down from 77% just 10 years ago. And the number of people in this country who say that they have no religion, the nones, not necessarily atheists, but they're totally disconnected from religion, that number is 26%, my friends. That's 1 in every 4. 1/4 of Americans in the United States identifies as non-religious. And that number is climbing and climbing. I mean, it's a relatively fast climb. When you look at the sea change that happens in cultures throughout history, occasionally there's kind of a Cambrian explosion of change that happens. I think this may be what's happening now. I mean, just a few decades, we're seeing religiosity waning, dying. Churches are wondering, how do we get people back? They're publishing books and strategies, and they're changing their church business models and the styles of worship services to try to appeal to a wider public because they're bleeding members. People need or want religion less and less. I mean, think about it. The people born in what's called the silent generation, 1928 to 1945, those birth years, 84% of them call themselves a Christian in this country. 84%. Millennials, people born between 1981 and 1996, less than half of millennials say that they are a Christian. They're not interested in discriminating against other people. They don't read a Bible. They don't even own a Bible. They're certainly not interested in all the judgments within the Bible. Other demographics show the same kind of stuff. Catholics are no longer a majority of the U.S. Hispanic population. Women, still more religious than men statistically, but that number's going out. 1/3 of all Democrats say they are non-religious. So while you and I look around and we see people trying to turn the government, a state church separated government into a church, we see that here at the ground level, the people who actually make up, who constitute this country, 300+ million American citizens, from coast to coast, they are becoming less and less religious. And it just stands to reason that in the decades ahead, the people they elect to represent them in public office will look and sound and think more like them, will represent their values. I mean, if we can survive what's going on now, imagine what the future might look like. So as you're diving through the insanity The constitutional violations, the QAnon conspiracy theories, the Bible bangers and the bigots and the people who are causing us to wonder if we truly deserve to survive as a nation and a species. Take a moment and think about the rise of the nones, the non-religious, atheists and people who just aren't interested in religion. 1/4 of all Americans right now, that number continuing to climb. Who knows what it will mean for the weeks, months, years, and decades ahead. I have to think that a less religious country and a less religious world can only be good for us all. I'll see you back here next week, my friends. Don't forget to keep your eyes open for the good in this world. It does exist. We just have to remember to look for it, okay? Take care.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter for a complete archive of podcasts and videos, products like mugs and t-shirts featuring the Thinking Atheist logo, links to atheist pages and resources, and details on upcoming Free Thought events and conventions. Log on to our website, thethinkingatheist.com.